All righty. Well, Brian, would you like to go back in time and talk about a little wrestling history?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I have got a couple of that. We're going to play a different game today. Normally on your show, the Drive-Thru, we play Guess the Program, and you ask me the lineup, and I try to get the year and the place and all that stuff. We're going to play a different game today based on my trip to the Jack Pfefer collection at the Notre Dame Hesburgh Libraries just last week or week before now, as you hear this. We're going to play Guess the Letter Writer. I am going to read a letter to Jack Pfefer and see how long it takes you to guess who wrote the letter. Does that sound fair?
Does that sound fair? Is it Morris?
Well, I mean, is that a nice parameter for the? I'll give you the date it was written to, the year that it was written.
Okay, I think it sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah.
And it won't be like from the dry cleaner, sir, your tux is ready or whatever. This is somebody, I believe you, a historian such as yourself, you are going to be able to divine the answer to this. This letter was written, and my copy cut the date off, but I jotted down early 1947. Okay, early 1947.
Okay, I think I got it. Keep going.
Get your dinger. And when you want to ring in, just ding and let me know. How about that? This is to Mr. Jack Pfefer, care of the Milby Hotel in Houston, Texas. My dear friend Jack, it was good to hear from you and to learn that Sam Avey can place me in his territory. And as a side note, obviously, Brian, you know, but some of the folks may not know that Sam Avey was an old-time wrestling promoter, most famous for being based out of Tulsa, but this letter does not say specifically that's where Sam Avey was promoting at the time, so I don't know. I am enclosing a carbon copy of my reply, which I sent to him together with pictures by airmail today. Let me say, Jack, that I am deeply appreciative of your efforts in my behalf and hope to see you soon to thank you personally. My fiancée, Helen, joins me in sending kindest regards.
I think I got it.
I'll finish. It's almost. Best of luck to you, and again, many thanks, Jack. Your friend who?
Stu Hart.
You are correct, sir. Yes, sir. This letter was mailed from Stu Hart, care of H. Smith, 636 Westchester Street, Long Beach, Long Island, New York.
Get out of here. Yeah, Harry Smith. And Westchester, that's not necessarily the west end of Long Beach, but the west side of Long Beach at least. Wow, very cool.
And that was Helen's parents, correct? Her father.
Harry Smith was Helen Smith's father. That is correct. And the chief of lifeguards was Paul Bosch. For real. Like, that's not a gimmick. He was the chief of lifeguards. And the story always was that he told his friends in the office, come down, I'm the chief of lifeguards, you'll have a great time. Beautiful women. And it was Stu Hart, Lord James Blears. Was it Sandor Kovacs? Was that the third person?
I think so, and he's all over the Pfefer files too, so that was a close group.
And all ended up as promoters. And Lord James Blears met his wife and married her in Oceanside, New York. And I know this because I wrote a letter to him in the 90s, and he wrote back to me, give me all the details, and he signed off with Tally Ho, which I stole from him. And Stu met Helen. And that's why whenever I've met a member of that family, the first thing I ever said is, I'm from Long Beach.
Well, now, and we'll deviate from the rules of the game for a minute, because I'll read you a follow-up letter written January 24th, 1960 by Stu Hart to Jack Pfefer, 13 years later, basically, right? And this is...
Is it Foothills Athletic Club stationery?
Foothills Athletic Club, Stuart E. Hart, president, and... he addressed it to Jack Pfefer, care of the Hotel Piccadilly in New York. We talked about that. And it's a long letter, and he's thanking Pfefer for sending Ricky Starr out to work his territory and blah, blah, blah. But the last paragraph is, we had our 10th baby, a boy, on last January 3rd. He is the seventh son 13 years later. And Jack, as you know, my wife has always had the highest regard for you from the first time she met you, and you've been kind enough to always remember her in your letters. So she has asked me to be sure I include in this letter the special request that you do us the honor of being godfather for this baby boy, now 3 weeks old, named Ross Lindsay Hart. This can be done by proxy because we know how busy you are. We would be very happy if you would consent. So Jack Pfefer was Ross Hart's godfather.
In writing. Like sometimes, that's just something you say to someone, you mention it to them, but it's actually in writing.
No, and the thing is, this was the thing about Pfefer, is that to some people, he was their best friend and a genius, and they were so loyal. He had done such good things for them. And to some people, he was a necessary evil that they had to deal with because of the ideas he'd had and the talent that he controlled. And to some people, he was a scum of the earth, and they wanted to run him out of town, all at the same time. And it just the most unique individual. Anyway, let's get back to the game. How about guess the letter writer from 1963? You ready for this?
I'm ready for this.
Mr. Jack Pfefer, and it's spelled Phiffer. So that might not have got over with him already. I have been working for about 6 months now, and several of the boys have advised me to send you some pictures and a short history. I am 23 years of age, 6'3", 280 pounds, and I wrestled and played football at Oklahoma University.
I got it. Right, where's my horn?
Where's your horn?
It's actually Scott Cornish's horn.
Well, no, you're wrong. This is not Scott Cornish.
Should I say who I think it is?
Oh, no, who do you think it is?
The Oklahoma Stampeder himself, Cowboy Bill Watts.
You are correct, sir. But I'll keep going with the letter. I also wrestled in high school. I represented the U.S. against the Japanese in 1961 when they were here. I have a good background of wrestling in case it's needed. However, I am more interested in working, underlined, and earning money, underlined. And I will do anything that's good for the business. You still had to tell the promoters someday in those days, if you were a legitimate wrestler, that you were agreeable to working to make money. My neck is 19 inches, bicep 19 inches, chest 54. Oh, he wrote 52 and then turned it into a 4. I swear to God. Waist 39. If you think you could help me and you're interested, I would sincerely appreciate it. Some of the boys that you could ask about me are Lou Thez, Art Nelson, Bill Miller, Leroy McGurk, Tiny Smith. That was Grizzly. Because he was still at that point McGurk's top guy then. Carl Krauser and the Scott brothers. I'll try to contact you by phone about a week after these pictures are sent.
So that's fascinating for a number of reasons. Obviously, early in Watts' career, 63, he would go to the WWF. He would go to New York. A little bit after that, have a big babyface run, and then turn on Bruno. Yeah. And that was like one of the big highlights of the early years of Bruno. And they did big business. Watts may have been one of those guys that, if he hadn't become a promoter and a booker and been involved in the middle of so many things, maybe they would have brought him back for a run against Bruno every now and then, or, even against Backlund. But he got chased out of New York, so I think there was a lawsuit because he hit a fan in West Hempstead. And then he had his career, but the idea that right before then, in 63, I mean, Pfefer, I guess he had just had New York. He had just had New York, I shouldn't say.
Pfefer, as we'll talk more about in a second, had, in very recent memory, been the guy booking guys into New York, into the Garden. And we'll talk about that because everybody thinks that, if they think of the Garden, they think of Vince Sr. He started it. That there was a long road to hoe to get there. But
I think there is a fan base, just because they're never told anything otherwise, that actually believes like it was Jess McMahon, Vince's grandfather, who ran wrestling at the Garden. And then his dad took over and then he bought the company. Not realizing Jess had like nothing to do with wrestling, and that there was still a battle for the garden into the early 60s.
Well, before we get there, I got one more letter, and this isn't something you're going to have to guess because it says the name, but this is a letter that is in the Pfefer files that caught my eye because, I was in that major motion picture, Brian. I was on the silver screen here not long ago, Queen of the Ring. You remember that, my starring role?
Of course. How can anyone forget your starring role?
How can anyone? I'm timeless. I got the perfect face for black and white movies. But it was about, obviously, Mildred Burke and her tempestuous relationship with Billy Wolf and the battle for supremacy in the girl wrestling business and how all the dirty laundry that came out and the infidelity and the fornication and things and such of that nature, right? So I don't know why this letter was written or this statement was made or whatever, but I'm assuming, or why Jack Pfefer ended up with it, except that perhaps Pfefer was trying to assist the Mildred side in this split and discredit, because, Billy Wolf, after he allegedly sold the girl wrestling business to Mildred, then started up under June Byers and Nell Stewart's name. Part of that was in the movie, and that's obviously in the book. And they ended up fucking Mildred out of the girl wrestling business. But there were girls that were on her side too. So you remember Corra Combmes, a lovely lady from Eastern Kentucky. She was a big main eventer for Goulas in a day in Nashville. This letter is written Houston, Texas, August 29th, 1953. To whom it may concern, I, Beulah May Combs, known as Corra Combmes in the wrestling profession, and this is typewritten, by the way, have personally known Billy Wolf Sr., Billy Wolf Jr., June Byers, and Nell Stewart for 3 years. I wrestled under the management of Billy Wolf for about 2 years and personally know and will testify that he has lived with Nell Stewart and June Byers for the full 3 years. And have heard many girls testify to the fact that they had lived together for years before I knew them, including Billy Wolf Sr.'s own testimony. Billy Wolf ran his business entirely on an immoral basis and tried to get me to participate in immoral conduct with his lawyer during the time I worked for him. The lawyer is not named here, but since Billy Wolf signed out of the business for 5 years, and that was an awkward way of saying he sold the company and agreed not to compete, right? He has offered me 85% to quit his buyers and return to him under cover of Nell Stewart and June Byers Girl Wrestling Enterprises. In English, that means that he offered to give her 85% of the money that she earned as a wrestler to be represented by his new company under Stewart and Byers instead of Mildred, who bought his company, but apparently was taking more than 15%. He has made this same offer to practically every girl in the business. Some of them were possibly stupid enough to fall for this line, but I and many others are not. I personally witnessed on several occasions Billy Wolf and Nell Stewart in bed together when he was still married to Mildred Burke.
Oh, wow.
One of these occasions was at Rock Village Courts in Springfield, Missouri. Another time was the Park Hotel in Columbus, Ohio. This is 1953. It still was like a big deal in court in a business dispute if one of the people was fucking somebody, right? Anyway, I personally don't believe these 4 characters, Billy Wolf Sr., Billy Wolf Jr., June Byers, or Nell Stewart, should have the right to talk about anyone, no matter what they do. Sincerely, your friend and made voluntarily by Corra Combmes. I thought that was this was no wonder that the established promoters, after all this drama went on for like 5 or 6 years, just said to Moolah, here, you fucking do the girl thing and keep an eye on it, because they don't want to fuck with it anymore because of all this chaos. Because these, this Billy Wolf character was not making a lot of friends. Babies, apparently, but not friends.
I'm looking right now to see if I have a digital copy that I may have taken when we did the segment, but I don't appear to. When we did the Mildred Burke file from the files, I mean, wasn't it a similar thing? It was like Nashville, similar time, girl wrestlers writing in, one on the side of Mildred, one against Mildred.
Yeah. And they pitted them all against each other in this whole hoo-ha. But as a result of it, regardless of whose side you were on, the promoters didn't want to fucking deal with it, and they kind of made it a subgenre of the business for mostly one entity for the next 30 years. Well, there you have it.
There you have it.
Anyway, I need some help with New York geography from you now.
You know what? One last thing on all that. I guess it's just interesting when you think about, Corra Combmes was really kind of shut out in a lot of ways for the rest of her career. And you could argue whether it affected Debbie Combs' career or not. I mean, she was doing stuff with the ICW guys who were considered the Outlaws when she first was really getting going. But do you think that had anything to do with, Corra being on the outs with everything, or is it just as simple as Moolah took over, she had her own people?
I think a little bit of Corra possibly having just gotten a sour taste with the whole thing with Mildred Burke and Billy Wolf and et cetera, and Moolah having her own girls. Corra didn't need to be beholden to Moolah, because if you notice, there was a drastic shift in all of the girls who were really already established in the business in the mid-50s. By the early 60s, they were gone, and all the girls that were really used in the 60s, for the most part, except for like the Mary Jane Mulls in Indiana or Corra Combs in Tennessee, they hadn't been in the business since the 50s. There was a changeover in the roster there. So part of it was just naturally that. But Corra was a tough old bird, I'll tell you that.